So Wrestlemania weekend is over, and I've got a lot to get through. So much so that I could have probably turned this into about 5 or 6 individual videos, but what the hell, I'll just cram it all into one because I'm short. I'm actually short for time because I'm not going to be able to film every night, so this is the only night I could knock it all out. Yeah, first of all, let me start off by saying that I'm a complete idiot, and I have to confess my stupidity. Not over the Brock Lesnar-Undertaker match, which I'll get to that, don't you worry. But I experienced a double dose of just fucking moronic on Sunday. And for anybody who ever thinks that I'm smart, I'm not. I'm a fucking idiot. 2 things. Like I said, a double dose of stupid. One, remember when I said that my Godzilla movie reviews for the 80s and 90s were all done? It was just a matter of editing the whole thing together and then it would be posted this weekend? Well, you see, I filmed all my WrestleMania videos, and when I was done with them and I posted the last one, I deleted the folder that has all the WrestleMania videos in it, which, unbeknownst to me, also had the Godzilla movie reviews in it. So I deleted all 7 Godzilla movie reviews for the 80s and 90s. So I had to spend all of Sunday reshooting them all. Don't think I didn't feel like a moron. And I know Nostalgia Critic actually did something similar a couple months ago when he reviewed Face Off, I think it was. He deleted his original shoot of the film and had to like scramble to come up with a new one. So I guess I don't want to say it happens to the best of us because I don't consider myself to be one of the best, but it was, I was so angry at myself. You would not have wanted to be around me. I was so pissed off. I filmed all of that and then I had to spend all of Sunday reshooting it. I was going to spend Sunday watching a bunch of old WrestleMania stuff. It was like, no, gotta reshoot the Godzilla reviews because I'm a fucking idiot. And yeah, the stupid continued to pile on because I guess from reshooting the Godzilla reviews, and actually to be perfectly honest, I went back and rewatched them. I actually think I did a better job the second time around, so at least you're getting the better reviews. But I kind of sort of lost track of like my sense of time, I guess. And in shooting all the Godzilla reviews, I don't know why, I had it in my head that the WrestleMania pre-show was starting at 7 Eastern, 7 o'clock Eastern. That was wrong. That was completely wrong. The pre-show actually started at, I think it was a 2-hour pre-show, so it probably started at 5, and I thought, okay, it's a 2-hour pre-show, the first hour is probably going to be nothing, so I'll tune in at 7, and then the real show will start at 8. That was my thinking. I flip it on, and I of course I'm watching this on my tablet, I watch the network, and I catch the tail end of the tag team title match, which I basically flipped on, I saw the Usos do the splash to win the match. And I saw the Cesaro Swagger, split. I saw all of that. But I was disappointed. I was like, aw, I miss all my tag teamy stuff. Why did they put the pre-show match in the first hour when nobody's going to watch? And it didn't dawn on me. And of course, because I still thought it was the pre-show, and I'm like, well, I saw the match. So I'm only going to kind of half pay attention while I surf the net or whatever on my computer. And then I turned and I looked and I noticed that Hulk Hogan had come out. And I was like, they're putting Hulk Hogan on the pre-show? That's really weird. And I didn't realize that WrestleMania had even started. It was kind of like, it just sort of dawned on me like a fucking idiot. But so, oh, this is the main show. Oh, that's right, it's a 4-hour show, so it would make sense for it to start at 7, right? The real show to start at 7. So I walked out of Sunday feeling like the biggest fucking idiot you could possibly imagine, between deleting my entire video project and then just completely screwing up the time frame of when WrestleMania was taking place. I mean, I looked like the biggest fucking moron on God's green earth. I was like, for all the times that I make fun of, the WWE or TNA for being stupid, I mean, that was, I had a shining example of stupidity all day long on Sunday. It was pretty remarkable. I did not feel very smart, so, if I ever if I ever claim any sort of intellectual high ground over anybody, keep in mind, April 6th, 2014, Patrick the biggest fucking idiot on the planet. So keep that in mind. And I really should not use any sort of intellectual high ground over anybody after a day like that. Although if I were somebody like Bill Maher or Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly or Jon Stewart or any of those other fucking assholes, I probably would. But I'm not an egomaniac like they are. So it's all good. But anyway, that was my Sunday. And actually, I have to talk about the entire weekend, because one of the reasons this video is going to be so long-winded and so just bulky and full of stuff is because I didn't just watch Wrestlemania, I watched a lot of stuff. I watched the Hall of Fame. I also went to a movie. I also caught the season premiere of a certain hit television show. So I figured, you know what, fuck it, I'll just throw it all out there and just review it all and just basically give away my experiences this entire weekend. I did not go to WrestleMania this year, obviously. New Orleans is a little bit too far for me, and, you know, considering that I don't have enough PTO from work, it wouldn't have been a very good idea to do it. That said, I have to talk about a lot of the things I saw this weekend, starting with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Saw that movie on Friday. It's opening day. And I know I feel like I have to review it because in my last video of 2013 I said that this was one of the movies I was most looking forward to in 2014. It was Godzilla, X-Men Days of Future Past, Maleficent, which I gotta be honest, I'm kind of losing my faith in Maleficent a little bit the more I've seen. Captain America and the Muppet movie. Those were the five, and Captain America came out this weekend, and I gotta say, that movie was fucking awesome. That movie was amazing and really caught me off guard at how awesome it was. I was prepared for it to be really, really good, and I love Cap and everything, but I wasn't ready for it to be that awesome. I mean, they did so many cool things in this movie. The action sequences were amazing. The characters were great. I love Captain America. He's basically what the WWE wants John Cena to be, and yeah, he's a Boy Scout, and yes, he's you know, by the books, just straight up good guy, but it's believable. It feels like he's speaking from a place of truth and something that he honestly believes in. And, you know, when he confronts Nick Fury on his bullshit, it feels like he's coming from a place that he actually does stand for something, he does believe in something. And the whole thing about him being out of time and out of place and all that, I think is a great setup. And he really does clash with the rest of the world around him. As highlighted by his costume, because his costume looks so out of place among this world, but it looks great. So it's kind of, I just love the whole setup there. And I almost called her Scarlet Witch. Black Widow, fantastic. I mean, Scarlett Johansson, she owns it whenever she's on screen. She's great, and she seems to get better and better at every movie she's in. I love Falcon. The way they reinvented Falcon was great. I was like, wow, they actually made him kind of cool, and his friendship with Cap is actually believable. It's like, oh, these two were buds. I like this. It kind of reminds me of the way Tony and Rhodey were in the first Iron Man movie. Just really believable friendship there, and just you know, the discussions that they have with each other and everything else. It's all great, and it's all wired into this story. That's a great political drama and a conspiracy story that honestly kept me guessing, and I won't give it all away, but it really did keep me guessing all throughout the movie, like, what is going on exactly. I mean, there are a couple of things that I knew, but at the same time, I didn't know what the overarching, the web was. I didn't know what the dome was that everything was contained in. So I'm like, alright, this is all, like, building to something. I don't know what it is. And when they revealed what it was, I was like, wow, that was impressive. That's actually really good. And it, you know, does a great job of connecting into the rest of the Marvel Universe. The first Captain America movie, and, you know, sets up some great stuff for the future. And while it's on its own is this great comic book superhero / action / political drama movie, I mean, it was very, very good and very exciting, and I loved it. It was just great, and the movie was so good that it made Captain America my favorite Avenger. I was like, after this movie, I'm like, all right, I've been beat over the head with a baseball bat with the word awesome written on it. Cap's my favorite Avenger now. I'm sorry, Tony. I'm sorry. I love you, but Cap's the man. I was kind of like, all right, I yield to Captain America. He is now my favorite Avenger. At least in the cinematic universe. I just love what they've done with Cap, and I loved him in this first movie. I loved him in the Avengers, even though the costume didn't look too good in that movie. There's just a whole thing of him being the quarterback of the Avengers. I just really liked that, and really stuck with me. And then giving him this great character piece in this movie with a lot of other things going on. Yeah, Cap's awesome. And the Winter Soldier was awesome. I've heard a lot of people complain that the Winter Soldier wasn't in the movie enough. And I'm like, maybe, but when he was on screen, it was awesome. I mean, he was badass and he was kind of scary. I'm not going to lie. Like, he was like, it's like, wow, this guy's dangerous and this guy's awesome. And just really great stuff. And he really reminded me of the Terminator. Just this soulless killing machine that just tore through everybody that walked in his path. And of course, if I have to make a wrestling comparison, I already compared Cap to John Cena, and I mean this comparison, I mean in a good way. The Winter Soldier reminded me of Kane, back when Kane was awesome, in like 98, when Kane was legitimately an awesome character. He was just this unstoppable, badass force that just tore through everybody, and it really made for a couple of great fight scenes with Cap, and some great shootouts, great car chases, and in addition to just having this great story wrapped all around it. It was just fantastic all around, and I'm going to throw this out there. This might be too heavy of a praise, but I think that might have been the best Marvel movie to date. I know that's saying a lot, because the Avengers was a lot of fun and was awesome, and the first Iron Man was great and really got the universe on track and really showed that it was like, wow, Marvel knows what they're doing, and really introduced a lot of great things. But I really, really like this Captain America movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I highly recommend it. Like, when I think of some of my favorite comic book superhero movies, I think of the Tim Burton Batman, I think of The Dark Knight, I think of the Christopher Reeve Superman 1 and 2, Donner cut and theatrical cut. I think of Spider-Man 1 and 2, I think of the Avengers, the first Iron Man, X-Men 2, what are some other ones I really like? I like the Thomas Jane Punisher. Fuck all y'all that don't like it. Well, of course I kid, but I really do legitimately like that movie, and I think it gets way too much hate. But I think Cap Winter Soldier's right up there is one of my favorites. I really liked it a lot, and really, again, it really caught me off guard at how awesome it really was. I wasn't prepared for it to be that good. I was prepared to like it, but I was just amazed at how good it was. It showed that Marvel still got some steam in this universe that they're building, and I'm looking forward to see what they do with Guardians of the Galaxy. That'll be fascinating. But you also got Age of Ultron coming up, and that looks like it could be a lot of fun, and it'll be interesting to see the Avengers come back in a sequel. But for now, I'm just enjoying Cap. It's like, give me more Captain America. I'm kind of on a Captain America binge right now. It's like, give me more. And if you'd asked me that 20 years ago, if I would love Captain America that much, I probably would have said no. But it's Marvel, man. They know what they're doing. DC, get your fucking act together, because the more I hear about this Batman Superman movie, the more I don't like it, and the more awful it seems. And granted, I liked Man of Steel. I know a lot of people didn't, but I enjoyed Man of Steel. But y'all's in trouble. I mean, of course, I don't want to give away the ending to Captain America, but I don't know what the hell Joss Whedon's going to do with his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show now, because it's like, well, Captain America, again, I don't want to give it away, but Captain America, the way that movie played out, is like, well, that kind of ruins Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., doesn't it? But my point is, the reason I bring up the show is because it's not a great show. It's entertaining for what it is. It's not fantastic, but it's fun, and it's cheesy, and it's, fun for what it is. But to really highlight how much better Marvel is than DC at presenting their own properties and their own characters, Lady Sif from the Thor universe or whatever made an appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's been in the Thor movies, and they brought the actress in and had her do a guest spot on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm watching this, and I'm just going, is it sad that Marvel can do Wonder Woman better than DC can? Because all I've heard is that Wonder Woman's too hard to do, and then I'm watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's like, it's not even fantastic, it's just, I look at it and I'm like, that's basically Wonder Woman. Why can't DC do Wonder Woman? How hard is it, really? And I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, Captain America, Winter Soldier, awesome. And any other comic book movie coming out this year, you've got a tough act to follow. X-Men Days of Future Past, you have a tough act to follow. Although I'm hoping it turns out like How to Train Your Dragon and Toy Story 3 did, where How to Train Your Dragon came out, And it was like, oh my god, DreamWorks just totally stole Pixar's thunder. It's like, yeah, good luck with Toy Story 3. And then Toy Story 3 came out. It was fucking amazing. It's like, oh, Jesus. Well, okay, false alarm. Pixar still kicked DreamWorks' ass, although Pixar has not been able to do that since then. But, yeah, hopefully we get something like that, because X-Men Days of Future Past does look pretty amazing. So we shall see how that all plays out. But, yeah, Cap. Loved it. Other things I watched this weekend. The season premiere to Game of Thrones. And it's really nice that I got it on Sunday right after Walking Dead had their season finale. So it's nice that I get one great show and go on to another. And Walking Dead, I'm actually already kind of missing it, because this season was... I mean, personally, probably the best the show's ever been. The first half of the season especially, with the whole the sickness and the illness storyline in the prison and the governor's return and the big battle at the end of the mid-season finale that, quite honestly, should have been the Season 3 finale. But yeah, that was all great. And then, yeah, it slowed down a little bit, but you got a lot of great character pieces after the fall of the prison and stuff like that, and that was fun. And there was one episode, The Grove, which is the most disturbing fucking thing that I've ever watched in my life, at least on television. I've seen some sick shit in movies and comics and shit, but for TV, that might be the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not going to spoil it, but they did take it from the comics. The reason why it was more shocking in the TV show is because the Walking Dead comics are very gratuitous and just so over the top that something like that just really didn't faze me all that much. I mean, it was like, oh shit, they did that, okay. But the world in the comics is so dark and so bleak and so over the top that it just kind of, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the norm for this place. And even though the show can be dark and grisly, it's balanced out with a lot of very human and very down-to-earth moments too. So when you get something that shocking and that dark, it really hits. And again, I'm not going to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but it was dark as shit. It was actually the episode that CM Punk was the guest star on Talking Dead right after the show. And Punk looks good, by the way. He actually looks refreshed and happy. So maybe getting him away from the WWE was a good thing, because towards the end there, he looked like he wasn't sleeping. So maybe it was good that Punk walked away and got some time off. But even he looked a little shaken by what he saw in the episode, because like the whole panel was just like shocked by what they saw, and they were like, I don't really know what to say to that, but okay. Anyway, Walking Dead. Okay, so I liked Season 4 a lot, and it ended on a great cliffhanger, but now we got Game of Thrones, and that's back. I just got caught up on Game of Thrones. I had not followed the whole show pretty much since Season 1. So I got caught up on it, and I enjoyed most of the show. There are certain plot lines and certain characters I don't give a flying shit about, like the cripple Stark kid and his homeless little caretaker, and Hodor, who's the only character name I remember out of that group or that subplot. They're boring, and I just really don't care about them or where they're going. But maybe it'll pan out. Who knows? I could not give any less of a fuck about Daenerys Targaryen, or whatever the fuck her name is, the Mother of Dragons. In Season 1, the problem is that she's so far removed from Westeros that it almost feels like she doesn't matter. And in Seasons 2 and 3, it got worse, because at least in Season 1 she struggled and she went through shit and she had to overcome shit. Here it's like she's like a goddamn Mary Sue, and she just walks in, every man falls in love with her because she's the most beautiful thing that ever beautied. And she's awesome, and she just solves all her problems by being what she is. I am awesome, I am beautiful, and I am the Mother of Dragons, so my dragons are going to set you on fire, and that's it. And she's just perfect and always knows what to do, and blah, 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 and you're Superman without kryptonite and boobs. And granted, that actress is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but her plotline is boring, and so she's this gigantic Mary Sue. Again, the whole Superman without kryptonite thing. Again, nice tits, though. I'll give you that. But you got all that, and she doesn't struggle through anything, and she's far removed from everything else that's going on in Westeros. So it's like, I really don't care whenever you're on screen. I don't care at all. Go away. Either get to Westeros or fuck off, because I just don't care. And until your dragons step foot on Westeros, I'm not going to give a flippin' shit. But other than that, though, I really like most of the characters. I like the Night Watch, and I liked a lot of the interactions between them going on in Season 1. I like Jon Snow, I like Sam, and some of the things that they did. When they went north of the Wall, and Jon met up with the Fire Crotch horde that basically exists for the sole purpose of wanting to fuck Jon Snow, and there's really nothing else to her character beyond that. It's like, oh, Jon Snow, I want to fuck you, and whatever. And that's a horrible accent, a horrible imitation of her accent, but it's like she's basically just a cock whore, just a cock-eating machine, and that's basically the only reason her character exists. And for a homeless, nomadic wanderer, she actually looks pretty well kept, I must say. But other than that, those little detours or whatever, I do like the Night Watch, and I'm happy that they're actually back at Castle Black now, and we can actually get on to something more interesting. It actually does look like something more interesting is going on. In the premiere, they set up something really good, and I haven't read the books, so I can't really say what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. And I've actually done a pretty good job of keeping it spoiler-free for me, because I've heard that Game of Thrones fans who have read the books are notoriously bad at giving away spoilers. But I've been lucky. I've been managed to avoid it. So, yeah, yay me. So yeah, really like the Night Watch. I really like Tyrion. I mean, how could you not love Tyrion? I mean, that guy is just a ball, just this walking ball of awesome. He's just so quotable and so charismatic and so likable. I like his sidekick, his bodyguard Braun. He's great. I like Shay, his love interest. I think she's great. I love King's Landing. That's when the show's at its best. Whenever it's on King's Landing, because personally I say fuck the Red Wedding. And yeah, the Red Wedding was shocking and it was violent and grisly and all that. But I don't like Robb Stark that much because I felt like he did that to himself. I'm like, oh yeah. In the middle of a war, I'm going to betray one of my allies to go chase some tail. Which again, look at her. She's hot, I get it, but not the greatest strategy, Robb Stark, to start breaking off arranged marriages in the middle of a war. That was very dumb of you, very, very dumb. But yeah, so the Red Wedding was all his fault as far as I'm concerned. He totally did that to himself. Thinking with the wrong head there, Rob. Again, no, she's hot and you can bag her, but don't be breaking off arranged marriages in the middle of a war. That's a really bad idea. To me, my favorite wedding on the show was actually the Sansa Tyrion wedding because it was so hilariously awkward and so just a great character piece for Joffrey to be a dick, and I love Joffrey. He's the biggest dickhole on the planet. What a great heel. Great fucking heel. Love him to death. He's great. I love his mother, Cersei. She's Queen Cuntosaurus. She's fantastic at being a bitch. Jaime Lannister and Brienne, I love that. Even though their storyline was birthed out of something really, really stupid. Again, talking about really dumb decisions. Mama Stark, I forget her name. Mama Stark. Oh, I'm gonna let Jaime Lannister go and take my knight to deliver him to King's Landing to trade him for my daughters. I'm like, and they are going to kill Brienne the second they step through those gates. You're a fucking idiot. You've just given up your bargaining posture. And if Jaime had been killed by the soldiers, all right, he's dead. What? I know you don't want to lose. Again, you don't want to lose your bargaining posture, but at least you're not losing. You're not making yourself look idiotic, basically. And at least killing Jaime would have sent a message to the Lannisters, not to, you don't want to fuck with us or whatever. But again, even though their storyline and their relationship was birthed out of a really stupid decision on Lady Stark's part. I do like their partnership, actually. I do like, and I'm not a shipper. I'm not in like a romantic way. It's like, I want them to fuck. And it's like, no. I was like, I really like the way they bounce off of each other. Brienne, or Brienne Lesnar, as I'm going to call her, she's just fucking awesome. I think she's great. Great female. See, Daenerys Targaryen is a total Mary Sue, and not the type of strong female character I like because she's just too perfect to have any kind of connectivity to her. Brienne, she's awesome. Brienne is fucking awesome. She can hang with the men, but she's also vulnerable and is also a character and also has things that she's trying to accomplish and wants and desires that are actually more tangible. And speaking of strong female characters, I think after this season premiere, Arya might have become my favorite character. I love it. And it's amazing to me. My two favorite characters on Game of Thrones are the dwarf and the little girl. In a show that's all about being a badass and violence and gore and nudity and sex and just basically porn for nerds and dragons and all this other shit, my two favorite characters are the dwarf and the little kid. It's like an R-rated version of Willow, for those of you who have seen that movie. Yeah, I think she's great. She's just an awesome character. I love how she's managed to survive on the road on her own. I love the end of this episode. Don't want to spoil too much, but Really, really awesome stuff there. And, yeah, I think she's really cool. I think she's a really great character, and she's really coming into her own now. And, again, talking about characters bouncing off of each other, I think she interacts great with the Hound. I love that character, too. So, it's really funny. In Game of Thrones, people talked about how much they hate it when a character dies and how it breaks their heart. And South Park made a joke about it when they did their big Game of Thrones parody, and whenever a character died, Randy would just yell, "No! Everyone really liked you!" And all that stuff. And that's hilarious, but watching Game of Thrones, really, I haven't... not since season 1, none of my favorite characters have died. Pretty much all of my favorites are still alive, so I guess I'm just lucky that way. Although I don't think... I have this funny feeling that Shay and Bronn aren't going to last too much longer, but we'll see. Yeah, Game of Thrones, off to a good start. Good season premiere for the most part. I mean, Daenerys is still boring, and I'm sure when the homeless lady and the kids, cripple Stark show up and all that stuff. Well, actually, they split at the end of season 3, so I'm sure when they show up, I'm still not going to care or whatever. But the stuff in King's Landing is really good, and I think they're setting up some really good stuff there, and the stuff at the Wall seems to be setting up something huge. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And, again, after Walking Dead finishes up, it is nice to get Game of Thrones right away. So, really happy about that. So, yeah, I'm going to drink some water and take a small break, and I will be right back thanks to another quick jump cut. And I'm back. Okay. All nice and refreshed and ready to go. Before I jump into the main stuff for WrestleMania, namely the Hall of Fame ceremony and WrestleMania 30 itself, I want to talk about some other odds and ends in the world of professional wrestling. Number one, there's a certain BuzzFeed list that somebody sent me a link to that's pretty interesting. I'll post a link to it here in the description along with the table of contents. And, yeah, they basically ranked every single WrestleMania match from the first 29 shows. I'm like, wow, that's a level of dedication I'm not willing to put forth myself. So good on you for doing that. That's pretty remarkable. But the reason I bring it up is because they're number one. Spoiler, skip me now if you don't want to hear, have the end of the article spoiled for you. The number one that they picked was Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage from WrestleMania 7. And I bring it up because that was the match that I listed at number one when I did my top 30 WrestleMania match series. I'm not saying that makes me super cool or special or necessarily right. I'm actually a little disappointed because it makes me less unique. Here I thought I'd pick this unique one that often gets overlooked and is legitimately, always been one of my favorites. And when I was putting the list together, it was down to that one and the next three that I had ranked. It was down to that one, Hogan Rock, Bret and Austin, and Undertaker and Kane at 14. Those were the ones that was like, all right, one of those is going to be my favorite. And it was really hard to narrow it down, but ultimately I did decide on Warrior and Savage. And I think I picked a good one, so at least BuzzFeed agrees with me. I just, there's that part of me that kind of wants to be the rebel. It's like, oh, but I'm the only one that's supposed to rank that one at number one because it makes me weird and special and stupid. But I'm just kidding. But no, Warrior and Savage is a damn good match and one of WrestleMania's finest, and it does deserve more credit. So it is nice that I'm not the only one that was willing to put it up that high. So that's pretty cool. But other wrestling stuff. Let's go outside of the WWE. I did not check out any of the other WrestleMania shows this weekend because obviously I lost Sunday until WrestleMania began because I'm a fucking idiot. But there were some other interesting headlines that I wanted to bring to people's attention and give my thoughts and feelings on. One that really caught me off guard. I guess I shouldn't be shocked given the state of the company, but Christy Hemme is on the TNA creative team, and I feel like I have to talk about this because it's just so bizarre. I didn't expect to see that. You wouldn't expect the winner of the very first WWE Raw Diva search to be writing a wrestling show. That's different. I wouldn't have expected that. I'm not going to react negatively to it like a lot of other people have. Like, a lot of people have made fun of it and said, it's like, oh, what does Christy Hemme know? And I'm like, well, I don't know what she knows. I don't know if she's any good at this. I don't know if she's suited for this. I have no idea. But that's the thing. I don't know. What I do know is that Christy's been in the business for about 10 years. She's worked as a wrestler. She's been a valet. She's been an announcer. She's worked behind the scenes, apparently. Maybe she's picked up some things. I don't know. Maybe she does know how to write and tell and book a good storyline and build up good matches. I have no idea. I don't know what she's going to contribute to the TNA creative team. It can't get any worse if you watch the shows. I mean, the TNA right now is so stale and boring and just lifeless. I mean, I don't think she could possibly make it any worse. I don't know if she can make it any better, and I don't want to throw any praise at her that is unwarranted. I'm just saying I don't know what she's like as a writer. I have no idea. And I think there's maybe a little bit of a sexism thing going on, because it's like whenever there's a woman booking a wrestling show, people just kind of like turn the stink eye to her. Like, I've always felt that Stephanie McMahon kind of gets a bad rap. Because it's like, she gets credit for a lot of the stupid storylines. I'm like, yeah. I mean, yeah, she's had a creative, but Vince has final say on everything. So as far as I'm concerned, Vince deserves most of the blame of whatever happens on TV, good or bad, because ultimately he's the one that makes the call. So I don't know. I mean, again, I have absolutely no idea what Stephanie brings to the table as a writer. I don't know. I've never sat in on a WWE creative meeting. I don't know what ideas are hers and which ones aren't. And I guess it'll be the same with Christy Hemme. I won't know which ideas are hers and which ones aren't. But I don't know what she's going to bring. It's not going to make me want to watch TNA unless she does have some influence that makes the show amazing. Who knows? Or maybe, I guess if I wanted to spin it in a negative way, it's kind of sad that they have to go to the knockouts to start finding writers for the show, because it's like, I mean, who's left? I mean, I couldn't tell you who's writing that show. Before Christy Hemme was announced as one of the writers, I couldn't have told you anybody that's has any kind of lead authority in putting the show together and writing it, because I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. And the ones that came before the current crew weren't doing a very good job either, so just gotta shrug your shoulders, I guess. So that happened. I just thought it was interesting, because it was just such a unique headline, I guess. But the other unique headline was Jeff Jarrett. His Global Force Wrestling promotion is starting up. He claims to have a database full of talent, about 400 names, that he's going to, go through and make a roster out of. And he's going to put on his own wrestling promotion, another new wrestling promotion, and start from scratch and, again, build another promotion. That's cool. I like that we could possibly have another wrestling promotion on TV. I don't know what kind of influence Jeff Jarrett would have. I don't know, there's talks that Toby Keith is involved with it. I don't know what type of influence Toby Keith would have in getting a new wrestling promotion on TV. I don't know what Jeff's ultimate plans are for this company, or what he wants to do with it creatively, or what talents he wants to bring in. I'm trying to think of who can he bring in, because WWE's pretty much mopped up everybody, all the talents that are worth anything, and the few that aren't are kind of wallowing away in TNA right now. So maybe they'll jump ship and go join Jeff if they've got no other place to go. But right now there's just so many question marks. I don't really know what to say. I'm not too hopeful, because I can't help but think, and I love and respect Jeff Jarrett. Don't get me wrong. I've always had a lot of respect for Jeff Jarrett. He's another guy I kind of feel gets a bum rap. He's a guy that I've always felt was talented, always had a good mind for wrestling, and usually, whenever he was involved on TV, always seemed to contribute good things for the most part, whether it be in WCW or TNA or WWE. When he caught Mike Graham, and I know Mike Graham passed away, and that's sad and everything, but when he was on the Rise and Fall WCW DVD and made fun of Jeff Jarrett and seemed to imply that it was his fault that WCW died, I'm like, really, dude? Really? Jeff Jarrett busted his ass to keep that company alive. Him, Booker T, guys like that, the Cruiserweights, they busted their asses to try and keep that company alive. And even Steiner, and Steiner gets a bum rap. He's another one that gets a bum rap. But Steiner tried his damnedest to keep that company alive. There was nothing anybody could do at that point, and it was dead on arrival when Jeff got there, and nobody was going to save it. Stone Cold Steve Austin couldn't have saved that show. It was just, the company was the shits. What do you want? And you can inject great talents into something shitty. It's still going to be shitty. That's true in any form of entertainment, TV, movies, whatever. So, I don't know. Again, Jeff Jarrett running another wrestling promotion, though, it's kind of like, it kind of makes me think that it's just going to turn out to be another TNA, and I don't know if that's a good thing, because you look at what TNA ultimately became. That obviously didn't that didn't pan out too well for anybody, quite honestly. And I don't know. I don't know. I hope he does well. I'm always in favor of more wrestling on TV, or just in general, because the guys need to have a place to go to learn. And NXT's great, and WWE's done a great job with it, but it really does help when you have a strong independent scene for guys to go to. Or, as you know, on a national level, it's good to have other companies on TV just to give guys options of where to go. The worst thing that ever happened to wrestling was losing ECW and losing WCW. Worst thing that ever happened. And yes, we have the network now, and WWE's got this awesome video library because of it, and that's all well and good, and I'm not going to lie, I love having all that stuff at my fingertips, but at the same time, you really did lose something when we lost WCW and we lost ECW, and it's just, filling that void has just been, it just hasn't happened. And ROH didn't quite pan out, TNA definitely didn't pan out, and not that those companies are dead, but they're not as interesting as they were 8 or 9 years ago. And, who knows? Maybe Jeff could do something special and make something happen. Who knows? But I'll at least give it a chance, especially if it gets on the TV. But, they've got a lot of work to do. That's basically where they are right now. They've got a lot of work to do to make anything work. So, I wish them the best. And, again, I'm always in favor of more wrestling. So, here's to that. But, I'm going to take another quick break, and when I come back through the magic of another jump cut, I love the jump cut. I've got kind of a fetish for it now. It's just, oh my god, it makes it so much easier. I can take breaks and come back, and none of y'all miss me, because the jump cut is, it's almost like time traveling in a way. But anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back, and then I'm going to jump into WrestleMania weekend, the Hall of Fame, especially. So I'll be back in just a sec. And I'm back, and it's time to talk about the Hall of Fame, the big Hall of Fame ceremony that the WWE put on, which is actually the first time I've actually watched the full ceremony, because, I have the WWE Network now, so I got to watch the entire ceremony, all the speeches in full, so it was fun. I have to say, this is probably, and again, I didn't see all the other Hall of Fame ceremonies in their entirety. I didn't go to last year's show when I was in New York, the one that was in MSG where Bruno got inducted. I could have gone, but I had other plans that night. But I will say this. This was probably the most awesome Hall of Fame ceremony ever. It had to be. It just had to be. For both the right reasons and the wrong reasons. But let's get into that, shall we? We started off with Lita being inducted by Trish Stratus, and Trish had a nice speech, and Lita came out, and she told a bunch of nice stories and cool stories about how she broke into the business and all the people she wanted to thank along the way. And she went a little long, but the stories were nice. So overall, okay, good overall, good all around. Then we got Jake the Snake Roberts. Holy shit! I mean, just holy shit! I mean, Jake made you laugh, cry, and everything in between. Obviously, it ended with a happy ending. And, of course, I love that DDP inducted him, and really what DDP's done for both him and Hall has been nothing short of remarkable. And kudos to DDP for mentioning Randy Savage. Thank you, DDP. DDP's a good dude. He's another guy that gets a bum rap, and I'm like, no, DDP's fucking awesome. He's literally saving lives, and apparently that has something to do with the fact that... he feels guilty about what happened to Canyon, and so he's working to kind of make up for that by helping other wrestlers that are downtrodden, and good on him. I mean, that's pretty cool what he's done for Jake and Hall, two guys that we as fans all thought were going to be dead over a decade ago. So, it's really cool what he's done, and Jake's speech was so emotional, and at times funny. He could be funny, and... the line he had that really stuck with me, though, was when the fans were chanting, "You still got it" at him, and he said, "No, you're wrong, but my heart and my mind still want it, but there comes a point where you can't do it justice anymore." I was like, wow, that is powerful shit. That is one of the most powerful things I've ever heard come out of a wrestler's mouth. Whether in character or out, and sometimes with Jake you can never tell what you're getting, the character or the real man, but here it's like I felt like we experienced like his entire life story all in this speech, and it went to some dark places, man, where he talked about how at times he considered committing suicide, but he didn't because he didn't want to put his children through that. The strained relationship he had with his family, his love-hate relationship with wrestling because of his father, and ultimately how much he loved the business, and it was the only time he ever felt truly in control of his life. And just really dark stuff. And really, his speech could have been the end of The Wrestler. It was that good. It felt... it had that level of emotion to it. It could have been the end of a movie. And obviously, it had a happy ending with him bringing his grandson out and getting to thank DDP and thank the fans and spend time with his family. It was actually a really powerful moment and really emotional. And I read a line that said that Jake's speech at this Hall of Fame was the measuring stick for how all other Hall of Fame speeches are going to be measured. It was very, very emotional. Really the highlight of the whole show. If you check out the Hall of Fame for one thing, do it for Jake, because that speech was unfucking believable. And of course he dropped an F-bomb too, which was pretty cool. And I'm like, that's what I loved about the show, is that the guys giving the speeches like clearly didn't give a shit. Like DDP is mentioning Randy Savage, Jake's dropping F-bombs, and Mr. T, which I'll get into that in a minute. Mr. T, that's all there is to say. And the Ultimate Warrior clearly gave no fucks either. So, I really like that whole aspect of the show. It's like the guys like, no, we're just going to be me, and we're just going to do what we want to do. And Jake's whole story and whole speech was really, really amazing and really remarkable. So, it might put you in tears, but I highly recommend checking that speech out, because it was pretty heavy. But at the same time, it was pretty awesome, too. And, of course, how do they follow that up? They immediately follow that up with Hornswoggle getting chased around the stage by a bull. Good one, Vince. It's like, oh, Vince, you crazy son of a bitch. I like you. Sure, okay. There's balance there. But anyway, then we got Mr. T. And... before Mr. T, the Hall of Fame speech that I think of for being hilariously bad was Ric Flair's induction speech of Roddy Piper in 2005. Because those were the only speeches I watched, because that's what aired in the USA Network. It was Piper's induction and Hogan's induction. And Flair inducted Piper and rambled in such a way that it was absolutely beautiful and hilarious. And my friends still make fun of it to this day because it was so funny. And I don't want to say Flair was drunk, but he clearly downed a few. I mean, he was not entirely with it. And he went up there, started slurring his words, and was like, rambled onto the story about how Roddy Piper, Knobs, he messed with Roddy Piper. And then before please subtitle Ric Flair, because he's harder to understand when he's drunk. And then the next thing you know, Brad Knox woke up the next morning with phlebitis. Bull squirrel with Roddy Piper. Night-night. Night-night. And my friends were watching this and were like, what the fuck is wrong with Flair? He'd had a few. It was clear. He's Lady Liquor had been calling that night, and Ric Flair answered. But that speech was so hilariously bad because it was like I didn't understand half of what he was saying, and the stuff I could understand sounded hilarious. So, and only because Flair was clearly not entirely with it. So that was my favorite really bad Hall of Fame speech. We have a new winner in Mr. T. Mr. T's speech, again, you need to listen to this speech. It was unfucking believable. He rambled on. I don't think he mentioned WrestleMania once the entire time, which is the whole reason he went in, is because of the role he played at WrestleMania 1. I don't think he mentioned WrestleMania or the story behind it or the match or anything. I don't think he mentioned any of that once. He literally rambled on for what felt like half an hour. It had to have been about half an hour. He just kept going and going and going and going and going and talking about his mama and how much he loves his mama. And of course, I was having flashbacks to the Water Boy. I'm like, wow, that guy really loves his mama. And, I love my mama too, but Jesus, dude. And of course, he brought up the Bible a lot, which again, I respect religion and I am a Catholic, so that's all well and good, but it was just Bible mama. That was the whole speech. And he just went off on it, like... Just that he wanted to dedicate this entire thing to how much he loved his mama. And it was hilarious because even the fans were like, what the hell is going on? What are we witnessing here? And there's nothing I can do that can bring it, that can do it justice. You just have to watch it for yourself. I was sitting there watching it on my tablet. I'm like, is this really happening? This is fucking hilarious. I felt like I was watching an Aristocrats joke. Because if you don't know about the Aristocrats, it's a thing among comedians where they tell a joke with a setup, and then they completely improvise the stuff in between, and then the punchline is always the Aristocrats. But I've heard so many stories about marathoning these Aristocrat jokes where they'll just keep improvising and just throwing on top and top and just keep building and building and building. I've heard some stories of some Aristocrat jokes between comedians going on for at least half an hour. I heard stories about Chevy Chase just taking it to insane levels and just going on and on with these jokes. And that's what I felt like I was watching. Although, of course, a non-dirty version of it, but it's just like, is there a point to this? Is he going to stop? Because he showed no signs of stopping. It's just, my mama, my mama, my mama, my mama. Your Bible said, love your mama. And he just kept going and going. And it was hilarious because it just kept getting funnier. And when he rattled down all the holidays, it's like, I love my mama on St. Patrick's Day. I love my mama on this day. I love my mama on this day. And it's like, what the fuck are we watching? This is fucking hilarious. And then, to add to the hilarity, the cherry on top of the sundae, Kane came out, music and everything, and cut off Mr. T and told us, like, look, we're done here, dude. We're done. You're done. And Mr. T was like, oh, I'm sorry. Said I'm out of time. And he was like, oh, I didn't get to hear him ramble about his mother for another hour. It was remarkable, to say the least. It'll go down as the worst Hall of Fame speech in the history of the WWE Hall of Fame. But it was so hilarious. It was so funny. And thank you, Mr. T, for giving us that moment, because I will be laughing about that one for years to come. It was a treasure. We get the best Hall of Fame speech of all time with Jake, and we get the worst of all time with Mr. T, but at least it was funny bad, and I can respect funny bad. So that was funny. Then we got into, who was next? Oh, it was Paul Bearer. That's who was next. And I have to say, Kane's speech was very, very good, and it was great that we got to see Glenn Jacobs induct Paul Bearer, because obviously Paul Bearer was a huge part of his career, and I like that he mentioned Paul's entire career. He wasn't just Paul Bearer, he was Percival Pringle III. I mentioned how he got into wrestling, a little bit about his life, and what he was like as a person, and what it was like going on the road with him, and stuff like that. And I liked that, and I thought Kane's speech was very, very good. And Kane, Glenn Jacobs, it's always nice to see them break character a little bit, and you get to see what they're really like. Glenn Jacobs is a very well-spoken, intelligent man, and I've known that for a while. I've seen him give some of his political speeches, and whether you agree with the things he says or not, he is a very well-educated, well-spoken, very intelligent man. It was actually kind of nice to see that, talking about somebody that was obviously very important to him and meant a lot to his life and his career. So I thought that was very nice, and it was nice that they brought out Paul Bearer's sons, or well, I should say William Moody. Brought out his sons to accept the honor, and that was all very nice. And of course, they look very much like their dad, I have to say. Yeah, those are his kids, all right. And it was really cool that they brought out Undertaker for his first Hall of Fame appearance ever to give, to honor William Moody, Paul Bearer. That was really nice too, and really cool. So I really liked the whole Paul Bearer induction. I thought that was really nice. Then we got, who came after that? Oh, Scott Hall. Or I should say Razor Ramon, because they inducted him just as Razor. And much like Jake, I didn't know what to expect from Hall, and it kind of worried me a little bit. But once you saw him, Nash gave him a good speech, and of course made fun of Mr. T a little bit, which, how could you not? But Nash gave a nice speech to induct him. And then Scott Hall came out, and he looked fucking good. He looked like a pimp. I was like, yeah, whoa, where's this Scott Hall been? He looked good. I liked it. The suit and everything, the way he had his hair, he was like, man, Hall looks fucking good. And of course, he opened up with, hey, yo. Gave a nice speech, short but sweet. I heard that he had his time cut because of, Mr. T running as long as he did. And Lita ran very long, too. But, it was a nice, short but sweet speech. Got to the point, thanked everybody he wanted to thank, and I mean, his ending line is something I want on a t-shirt, quite honestly. I mean, that's really cool. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do. It was like, that is a great line. I love that line. And yes, I would love that on a t-shirt. And, you know, the Clique came out and congratulated him, and that was expected, and really cool, you know. Nice little moment there. And then we get Carlos Colon, whose speech was, you know, his speech was okay. I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't understand half of what he was saying, but whatever. And thank God there were no Bruiser Brody chants in the crowd, because that would have been awkward. But the more interesting part was that they brought out his sons, or his family, to induct him, which included Carlito Caribbean Cool, who came out to a thunderous ovation. The crowd chanted Carlito. And Carlito then proceeded to steal the show with about 30 seconds of my time. I mean, you want to talk about making the most out of the time that you're given. I mean, Carlito, like, I walked away from the Hall of Fame things like, Carlito's fucking cool. But when they were chanting his name, it's like, you know, I'm used to working in bingo halls and high school gyms, so this is actually pretty cool. And, as they were chanting his name. And then he goes, it's like, you know, it's a lot like old times. So, you know, we got Razor coming on, and the Clique's going to come out, and we got Ultimate Warrior going on last. We need to bring them down in between. We need to do that. So, send out the Colognes. And he's like, and we got our time cut. So, it's like I never left. And that had me in stitches. I was like, oh, Carlito, you magnificent bastard. I mean, that was just beautiful. Just glorious. And the funniest part of the whole, even funnier than Mr. T's ridiculous speech. That whole thing was just hilarious. And I loved it, and I just shook my head when it was over, and I was like, oh, Carlito. Should have been something. Carlito should have been something that the WWE, he should still be there, quite honestly. A lot of potential, a lot of upside, great athlete, great talker, very charismatic as he showed at the Hall of Fame. He should have been something, and again, adding to the I don't give a fuck attitude of the Hall of Fame people, he's like, look, I don't work here anymore, fuck it. I'm going to be me. And I thought he was really funny. So, yeah, Carlito was a major highlight, for sure. Then we closed out with the Ultimate Warrior. And this was another one. I didn't know what we were going to get, but I was glued to, I was looking at my tab. I was like, all right, what are we going to get? Is Warrior going to go into business for himself? Is he going to be an asshole? Is he going to rant and rave like a lunatic? Blah, blah, blah. And I have to say, he did run a little long. Got a little long-winded. There were some awkward pauses, but I think some of that was because he was reacting to the crowd. And, you know, part of me wishes they wouldn't have the fans attend the Hall of Fame, because there's this tendency for wrestling fans to they always want to act excited and act like, you know, like they're at a wrestling show. It's like, to me, it's like, look, it's the Hall of Fame. There should be a little bit more class to it. Like, if I were going to attend the Hall of Fame, my thought would be to go in a suit. I would have a suit and tie ready, and I would go in that, and I would look so out of place sitting with a bunch of wrestling fans, but it's like that to me, it's that type of event. It's classy. And, you know, I just asked fans, like, okay, when the Warrior's talking, could you not chant shoot, shoot, shoot at him? And, you know, just kind of don't, you know, there's a time for that. At a wrestling show, it's okay. At the Hall of Fame, it should be a little bit more classy, I think. I mean, that's just my opinion, but anyway, Ultimate Warrior gave a speech. Yeah, it was a little long-winded, and yeah, it went a little too long, but I felt like we saw a side of Warrior that I didn't expect, and a side of Warrior that we're not normally accustomed to hearing about. I thought he was going to ram into Ted DiBiase when he called him out. He was like, where's Ted? Where's Ted? Hey, Ted, how you doing? And I think there was a little bit of him being facetious, but he didn't full on say, fuck you, Ted, or anything like that. And he could have. He had the platform, but he didn't do it. He said that the DVD was wrong, which was he fully within his right to say that. And I was never a big Warrior fan as a kid, but I did feel like the DVD was bullshit because they were making fun of him for being a cartoony character in an era where almost everybody was a cartoon character. And it really... And it's at the end of the day, it's like, look, Vince, you pushed him. It's like, you know, it's like, I mean, this is all your fault, right? I mean, yeah, he was probably, and I'm going to assume the stories are true, that he was a professional asshole and tough to deal with and, you know, unprofessional and all that other stuff. I'm going to assume that some of that stuff is true, but at the same time, there's two sides to every story, and maybe there are some things, you know, from Warrior's point of view that we've never heard before and never had access to. And here was his chance to kind of give that out a little bit and show a different side of himself. And At some points he was funny. He made blowing up sound awesome. I gotta say, it's like he made a joke about him blowing up, and then he said he made blowing up actually sound pretty cool. It's like, yeah, when I would blow up, that just made me want to push myself even harder to the ultimate limit, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, he made that sound pretty cool, actually. And he looks like Ron Perlman, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I thought it's like, I'm just sitting there thinking, it's like, yeah, he looks kind of like Ron Perlman. He could probably play Hellboy. And his whole line about, WWF, I'm sorry, WWE, I wish you'd get the F and F back in, just to help all of us that are used to WWF get it straight. I can't believe you lost to the World Wildlife people. I was like, I thought that was funny, and again, adding to the whole, like, we don't give a fuck attitude that some of the Hall of Famers had, but, I like that aspect. I like that Jake was real. I like that Warrior was real. I like that, Kane was real and I like that Carlito was real because it's like, they should be. It's, it's the Hall of Fame and it's not about storylines. It's not about, putting on a show. It's about honoring real people and honoring real legacies. And I think we should get real people in those instances. And I want to see what these people are really like. And Warrior came across like a human being. And I gotta admit, he talked about praising John Cena for his, oh god, I'm slipping, his Make-A-Wish Foundation, and that's always something very cool that I've respected about John Cena. I've never had a problem with John Cena, the man. It's always been the character, and I've always tried to make that point clear. But I think the stuff he does for kids is great. And it was great to hear Warrior acknowledge that and just say, it's, and something, again, I thought was really powerful. He said, look, I'm not really a tough guy. I just played one on TV, but it was a joy to bring smiles to kids' faces and stuff like that. And I thought, it's like, wow, that's surprisingly humble of Warrior. And again, that's not the picture that's been painted. And again, he could have been bullshitting the whole time. I don't know. I've never met Warrior. I don't know what he's really like. I've only heard the stories, but... Or maybe he's changed for the better since then. I don't know. I believe he's a very high-strung individual. Linda McMahon basically confirmed that when she gave her her induction speech. I'm sure he's a high-class, like I said, high-strung individual, very high-volume type of personality, which is probably why he got along with Savage. But, I felt like we saw like an actual human being, and you wouldn't expect to see that from the Warrior, this character that was so over the top and so crazy. And then after he left wrestling, he legally changed his name to Warrior just so he could keep the name. And, I didn't know what we were going to get from him. And, of course, I have heard the whole speech, queering don't make the world work, and that whole insanity. I'm like, wow, you are a lunatic, sir. But here I felt like we saw a very human side of him and talking about his family and, making kids happy and all of that other stuff. And I was like, again, yeah, parts of it were a little long-winded and there were some awkward pauses. But overall, I thought it was a pretty unique speech, and I really liked it. And I liked getting to see that side of Warrior because it's always good to get the other side of the story. And I might check out that other DVD that they're releasing just so I can get his side of the story on things. I would love to hear what he has to say about SummerSlam 91 and that whole thing there, because I think he was referencing his side of the story when he pulled out the check and was like making some kind of a nod to Vince. I'm sure Vince was sitting there the whole time going, it's like, please let him stop. Please stop. Please stop. But overall, I did enjoy getting to see Warrior, and, I'll bring it up now. I actually thought his promo on Raw the night after Mania was pretty good, too. It was actually, like, a pretty coherent Ultimate Warrior speech for once. And, nothing special. They didn't have him interact with anybody, but he basically talked about what it means to be a legend, who makes the legends, and who's going to become legends in the future, and how that happens and all that stuff. And I thought it was a pretty nice little speech on Monday Night Raw, the night after Mania. So, yeah, Warrior impressed me, Hall impressed me, Jake impressed me, Mr. T gave me memories that I can laugh about for the rest of my life. Carlito was funny. I really enjoyed the Hall of Fame. Kane was impressive, and Undertaker coming out was nice. It was overall a really nice ceremony, and a lot of insanity and a lot of craziness, but also a lot of fun too. So I really enjoyed it. It was the first Hall of Fame ceremony I've seen from start to finish in its entirety, and I really liked it, and I thought it was a nice way to get me in the mood for WrestleMania the next day. And, yeah, I'm going to talk about WrestleMania 30 right now. Taking me a while to get there, hasn't it? But, yeah, one more quick jump cup and, I'm getting, and I haven't been drinking this time. I'm just a little rattled because I've been doing this too long. Okay, one more quick jump cut. There we go. And then I'm going to jump right into WrestleMania 30, review that show, and then I'm going to close out by talking about Monday Night Raw the night after. So let's go into that right now. And now let's dive right into WrestleMania 30 and my thoughts on the show as a whole. Well, first of all, let me say I did watch it on the WWE Network, and the stream held up pretty well. There were a couple of pauses, but I think the problems were on my end because my wireless wasn't... It was acting a little wonky all weekend, so I'm pretty sure the problems were on my end of the deal. But for the most part, it held up pretty well, and I was impressed, so I was happy with that. The crowd was fantastic. I mean, to see all those thousands of people... thousands of people, over 70,000 doing the yes chants in unison was unbelievable. It was great visual, and the crowd was so hot all night long. The way they reacted to the Wyatts was great, and doing the arm swaying thing with Bray, I mean, that was all very good. So the crowd was fantastic, and they reacted appropriately to so many things, and we're hot all night long. It was really one of the better Mania crowds ever, quite honestly. Because I don't think that about ourselves last year at 29, because we kind of died after Taker and Punk. Once that match was over, it was like, yeah. Of course, it was also Lesnar and Triple H and Cena Rock, and, did anybody give a shit, really? This year's main event, they actually had something to give a shit about, so that all worked really well. The set looked really cool. I thought the whole setup and everything, the staging, all that looked really good. So from a production standpoint, it looked great. So yeah, overall, everything was, production-wise and the crowd and the atmosphere and everything, all of that was very good. But let's get into the actual show, the content of the show itself and what I thought thereof. Overall, I enjoyed almost everything on this show, I have to say. And I'll give my final thoughts at the end once I'm done talking about all the matches. But overall, I thought the show was quite good. Almost everything was fine, except for one booking misstep and one gigantic black eye on the show, which I think I just gave away what I'm going to talk about. But I'll get into that in a minute, or I'll get there when I get there. But aside from those two problems, one minor, one extremely major issue, I thought WrestleMania 30 was quite good and was very entertaining throughout. But let's start off with the show itself, where I didn't realize the show had started yet, but we got Hulk Hogan screwing up the name of the venue, calling it the Silverdome instead of the Superdome, which kudos to Austin and Rock for actually making a joke out of it. It kind of reminded me of that classic Saturday Night Live sketch with Gilda Radner and Candice Bergen, where Candice screwed up one of her lines and Gilda made a joke out of it, and actually made the skit like 10 times funnier because of it, so it at least turned into a nice joke. I like that, and Hogan even poked fun at himself the next night on Raw, so that was cool too. Now, the segment itself didn't really amount to anything. It was just the legends being buddy-buddy with each other, and there's that part of me that's like, oh, I don't want to see Austin and Hogan be friends. I want to see them beat the crap out of each other. It's like, if you're going to put them together, it's like, they've got to be enemies, because there's no way in hell those guys would be friends. And, at all, whatsoever. And, of course, Hogan's also 80 years old and can't do anything, so I don't think he can take a stunner at this point, so why even bother trying? But when they brought out Hogan, they brought out Austin, they brought out Rock, even though nothing really came of it and they didn't really do anything with it, it was a nice visual, if nothing else. It was kind of like paying tribute to the legacy of WrestleMania, and the segment wasn't boring or obnoxious. Yeah, Hogan screwed up the name of the venue, and yeah, Austin was stumbling over his words a little bit, but it was a cool visual, if nothing else. The only thing missing, I probably would have been tempted to have Bruno go out there. I was like, oh yeah, the real, legendy, old-timer Mount Rushmore of the WWE, quite honestly. Bruno, Hogan, Austin, and Rock. I'd have been all in favor of that. At least they didn't throw Cena out there. I would have yawned and rolled my eyes and done everything under the sun if they had done that. But for what it was a cool visual, if nothing else, and a nice little kickstart to the show. And, of course, once I'd finally realized that the main show had actually started, we went into the opening match, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised that they opened up with this, considering that the winner was going to have to work the main event. Triple H's entrance was hilarious, because apparently he rated Shao Kahn's wardrobe. Well, either that or Kevin Nash like spruced up his Super Shredder costume. It was like, hey, Triple H, you can wear this. Come on, buddy. Come on, Paul. You can be Super Shredder too. And it was kind of silly. Whenever Triple H does something like that, like his Conan entrance at 22 or the Castle Grayskull entrance from last year, it's like, is he trying to get a role in a movie or so? Is there something he's like volleying for? Or I don't know. It's funny, whatever the case may be. But Daniel Bryan and Triple H, great match. Loved it. It was actually my favorite match on the show. Loved it. Great opener. Great story for Bryan to overcome the Authority. And it was a great action-packed match that highlighted the strengths of Daniel Bryan as this great underdog character that can wrestle. And he was overcoming not only the Authority, not over everything that they were throwing at him, but also his injury. And I love that he was going in selling a shoulder injury, because that's like, it's kind of that Randy Savage at WrestleMania 4 thing, where it's like he's going into the main event hurt. I like that. And it was made even better by Triple H being a sore loser and just beating the shit out of Bryan after the match and hurting his shoulder even more. So, puts the main event kind of in doubt, and it allows for the story to breathe and develop as the show continues. So, really like that. And again, Bret had that too going into 10, where he lost to Owen, and it's like, oh, is Bret going to be able to defeat Yokozuna if he can't beat his younger brother? So it plants a seed of doubt a little bit. It makes the story more dramatically interesting by doing that. And of course, I'll get into the ending of the pay-per-view when I get there, but it did have a very similar payoff to 4 and 10, the way those shows played out. But next match on the card, after that great opening match, which I can't put over enough, Triple H and Bryan, match of the night. And I can't remember the last time I praised a Triple H match that much, but it was really, really good. Really liked it. Next, we got the 6-man tag, The Shield versus the New Age Outlaws and Kane. And The Shield came out, interrupted the Outlaws' shtick, and then proceeded to wipe the fucking floor with the Outlaws and Kane. I loved it. I marked out like a little bitch while this was going. I was like, yeah, fuck the Outlaws. Fuck them. They ruined the tag division. It's their fault. It's their fault the tag belts are on the pre-show. Fuck them. So, and they booked the match exactly how I would have booked it. It's like, you know what? The Shield is younger. They're stronger. They're faster. They're more athletic. They're a better 3-man unit than the Outlaws and fucking Kane. And so, yeah, they would annihilate these guys. I mean, you look at Road Dogg, and do you think that he would hang in a fight with anybody in the Shield? No. I mean, like, we got Team Badass on one side and just Team We Used to Be Cool on the other side. And I loved watching the Shield just destroy them. And I was like, yeah. And they beat him in like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm like, yeah. Right here. And the Outlaws got almost no offense, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. I loved it. Loved it. It was like, that is some great filler right there. It just made the Shield look like fucking badasses, which is what they should be. And I love that they overcame the whole teasing of the split and everything, and they've turned babyface, and they've got more mileage out of the Shield. They can keep them going for a while, and I love it. I just love it. I love the Shield. They've just when you think they're done, they just come back and keep being awesome. So I loved how this was booked. I have no complaints at all. Then we got the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which I initially didn't give a shit about going in, but the Kofi spot was kind of cool, where he avoided being eliminated by keeping his feet on the steel steps. That was actually kind of a neat little spot. And the match was generally fun. It was a battle royal, basically, but it was generally fun. And they gave us a surprising winner in Antonio Cesaro. Well, I guess he's just Cesaro now. But yeah, I was like, whoa, okay. I mean, they gave him the bit on the pre-show where he broke up with Swagger, and then he goes into the battle royal, and it's like, okay, yeah, Antonio, that was kind of cool. I liked it a lot. That was a nice surprise, because I think a lot of us assumed that they were just going to give it to Big Show, because he's the guy that is most like Andre the Giant. So, and we all thought that that's what their thought process was going to be, but no, they're actually trying to use it to build him into something special, which I like. And it's like, oh, maybe they've got a plan for him. And then the next night on Raw, he split from Zeb, split from Swagger, and now he's the next Paul Heyman guy. And I think it's safe to say that Cesaro is a much better match for Paul Heyman than Curtis Axel. I mean, when Curtis Axel came out, I was like, he's a Paul Heyman guy. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's a Vince guy that is saddled with Paul Heyman for some reason. No, Cesaro is a Paul Heyman guy, and like he's somebody that Paul Heyman would latch onto. And Hopefully they've got a plan for Cesaro, because I'm like, yeah, I'm buying what they're selling here with this guy. I like it. And it looks like they have a direction. So giving him the win in the Battle Royal really kind of made that match that I initially didn't care about and kind of made it cool. And apparently this is going to be an annual tradition to do this Battle Royal. It's like, okay, maybe they can use this as a way to build up a new guy, or as a way to kind of make it look like they're going to push somebody to a belt. Make it maybe not to the level of Money in the Bank, but just make it worth something. Don't just give it. Not like when Bad News Brown won that Battle Royal at 4 and it didn't really amount to anything. Just make it worthwhile. Make it something that could actually carry some weight going forward when you're setting up future contenders. And they can do that. And again, Cesaro was a lot of fun. I love the bit he did with Swagger the next night on Raw, where Swagger broke the trophy, and I think they could get a nice feud out of those two. And again, I'm not the biggest Swagger fan, but I think they could get a nice feud out of them. They've done pretty well with the split so far. They both have their own managers now. Excuse me. I think Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter would be great interacting with each other. I think that would be a match made in heaven of itself. And it's like, yeah, they've done a pretty good job with the split storyline. I'm not always a fan of splitting up tag teams, especially when I like the team, but I think they've done pretty well with this. Basically, they've done everything with the Real Americans that they didn't do with the Primetime Players. Like, the Primetime Players that's one of the most pointless splits they've ever done. It's like, really, what was the point of that? Seriously. But Real Americans, they've done it right. They got Cesaro over big time. They've given him Paul Heyman. And now there's actually some fuel here to do a feud between the two and do some matches. So I think that could be really good. So I'm really happy with how the Battle Royal turned out. Who'd have thunk, right? And Cesaro was a legitimate surprise. And I think it was around this point, it was either before this match or after this match, we got the backstage segment with the Legends, which was kind of a popcorn filler, haha moment, which was weird. I don't understand why they have the Legends act like weirdos. Like, I don't know why that's a thing with them. Like, Ted DiBiase has to be this silly little weirdo that just laughs and just walks around with the $1 million belt and just laughs and throws money around like a weirdo. And they always do that with the Legends, and I don't know why. It's so strange. Like IRS, when they brought him back a while ago, and he just stood there and was like, you need to pay your taxes. It's like walking through Disneyland or It's a Small World or whatever, and the animatronics are just spouting lines that you recognize, basically. It's not a very interesting way to use the Legends, and I think Ted DiBiase could be one of the best characters in wrestling today if you utilized him as such. And if he was willing to be a full-time character, but to see him in these like comedy sketches, it's just like, hey, come on, Ted, you're better than that. But whatever, that's my only thought on that. Then we went into John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. I'm going to throw this praise out there. You know how I said Captain America was the best Marvel movie? Or probably the best Marvel movie? This is probably John Cena's best WrestleMania match, because I can't think of another one. Let's go through John Cena's entire history at WrestleMania, briefly. His match with Big Show at 20, good match. They kind of robbed Cena by having him slam Big Show 80 times before Mania, so nobody really remembers the match. His match at 21 with JBL was anticlimactic. His match with Triple H at Mania 22... Yeah, 22. That's what I think of that match. Match with Shawn at 23 was really good, but it was really just Shawn Michaels making something out of nothing, because the build-up in the storyline and the character class just was void of anything interesting. It was just Shawn Michaels being awesome, basically, and making something out of nothing. The three-way at 24 was good, but nothing overly special. The three-way at 25 was painfully forgettable. The match with Batista at 26 was alright. The match with Miz at 27 was awful. The match with Rock at 28 was good. Not as good as WWE wants us to think it was. The match at 29, I was there. It got a boring chant. Nobody cared. But this match was really good, and I would put this up there as John Cena's personal best WrestleMania match. A John Cena WrestleMania match that I really liked. That's a good sign for this show. It really is. And a lot of it comes down to the strength of Bray Wyatt as a character. I mean, his character was on full display here, and Cena's reactions to him were great, because he was like, I don't know what to make of this guy. He's just really fucking weird and kind of weirding me out. And it was really good. That spot they did with the 5-knuckle shuffle where Bray kind of did the bridge up to do the spider thing. That was a great visual, and that was really cool. And Cena's expression was like, what the fuck is going on? It's just a really, really good match. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it had some of the typical Cena bullshit in it, like the 5 moves of doom sequences. And even when they break up the 5 moves of doom, he has to hit it later in the match. It's just really weird. I don't like that. So you got some of the Cena-isms, but not as much as usual. And Bray was just fantastic, and the crowd was totally on his side. And entrance of the night goes to Bray Wyatt. That was awesome. Having the band come out and the way it was all staged and set up and everything, his entrance was really cool. So basically it was just a great showcase for a great character, and it resulted in a really entertaining match. And for the people that say that Bray Wyatt's not a good worker, or that he's just he's just a character and he's not really that great of a worker. First of all, even if that was true, I don't care, because, like you said, he's a great character. Push him to the moon. It's like if he wasn't that good in the ring, you could work around it. He's a great character. Utilize him. But I disagree. I think he is a great worker. I think the kid's for real. The match he had with Bryan at the Rumble, the matches he's had with the Shield, the way he's really stepped up his game since he's been there, he just keeps getting better and better and better. I think Bray Wyatt's for real. I think he's really good, and I think they have a legitimate main event heel that they could cultivate and they could make. Now, the only problem with this match, the only significant problem, John Cena went over, and I was like, I knew it was coming, but god damn it. It's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. You ever have your parents say that to you? Look, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, because it's like, look, you really showcased Bray really well, and he's not irreparably damaged. I mean, the Wyatts won the 6-man tag the next night on Raw, so it's clear that they still want to do something with him. I just think for WrestleMania, you want to push this guy to the moon. If Cena wins, it's just Cena wins, and that's all you get out of it, and it doesn't matter. But if Bray wins, it pushes him even further, and I think, just keep the train going. It just seemed wasteful to give Cena that win. Again, not that Bray Wyatt is buried or irreparably damaged or anything. Far from it. He came out of this match looking really good. I just wish they had given him the win and just really put a lot of question marks on. It's like, oh God, where did he beat John Cena at WrestleMania? Where does he go next? I mean, if he beat Cena at Mania, I'm thinking, oh shit, title. It's like Daniel Bryan, get ready. So yeah, I really like that. And then right after that match, they did the Hall of Fame and not induction, the salute to the Hall of Famers in the new class, and that was nice as always. So up to this point, I mean, we're about 2.5 hours into the show. I've really enjoyed WrestleMania up to this point, right? It's been great. I've really, really liked it. And the time just flew by. I was amazed at how quick the show was going. I was really digging it and really liking it. And I was like, wow, this WrestleMania is pretty sweet. I'm really digging everything that they're doing. Then Undertaker and Lesnar happened. And this was, how I opened up the video by saying that my Sunday was a double dose of stupidity? This match was a double whammy of awful. A double dose of awful, or whatever you want to call it. Before I get into the outcome, and I'm going to go into that. Again, just wait, it's coming. The match was terrible. I could not believe what I was watching, how bad this match was, because typically with Undertaker, we've gotten to a point where it's like, okay, the storyline's not that great, but the match is really good. I mean, that was basically the Punk match from last year, right? It was like, well, the storyline kind of sucks, but at least the match was awesome, right? It was a really good match. But this match sucked. I mean, it was... Is Brock Lesnar ever going to have another good WrestleMania match? As I know I'm hard on the match he had with Angle at 19, and I've said it was overrated, but that match is a masterpiece compared to the match at 20 with Goldberg, his match with Triple H last year, and this match was even worse than the Triple H match. It was so bad. It was boring. It was overly long. It was laborious. It was just not that intriguing, and the two just didn't click real well. And I have to say, Undertaker did not look like Undertaker. And what I mean by that, he didn't look crisp. He looked like an old man out there. He looked off balance. He wasn't hitting his moves as well. Like that was like the shittiest tombstone I think he's done since the early stages of his career. He did not look like Undertaker at all, and this was one of the first times you've really seen Undertaker's age really start to show, and it's like, wow, he don't look good. And one person told me, I was posting that on a message board, and one person said, it's like, no, he's just selling. He's selling for Lesnar. That's the story that they're telling. I'm like, no, he does not look like Undertaker anymore. He looked winded. He looked off balance. Like I said, he wasn't as fast as he usually is. He wasn't as crisp as he usually is. He did not look like Undertaker at all, and it was really sad to see. I said the same thing about Sting in one of his TNA matches. I don't remember which one. It was like, wow, Sting does not look like Sting anymore. And we're at that point with Undertaker now. It's like, oh, he doesn't look like Taker anymore. I don't know, but the match was awful, and you want my personal opinion, it's by far the worst match on the show, and I've enjoyed everything up to this point, and going forward, I would enjoy almost everything that happened after this, but this match was shit. It was just a really shitty match. Really bad match. I hated it. It was boring. I was just sitting there just watching this like, when is this going to be over? Please end this. I'm sick and tired of watching it. I was getting flashbacks to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Great movie. And I finally read the books, by the way. I finally read the Scott Pilgrim books, and those are really good, too. I really love it. And gave me even more respect for Edgar Wright that he was able to turn those 6 books into a movie. But I digress. There's a scene in that movie where Scott Pilgrim's reading the first email from the first Evil X, Matthew Patel, and he's like, this is, and it just keeps building, and Wallace is like, what? This is what? And Scott's like, this is boring. And that was kind of my reaction to this match. It was like, this is boring. And the crowd, who was lively all night long, really didn't stay alive for this match. They kind of died too, because it was just watching two big guys bumbling and kind of fumbling around. That said, they did do one spot that was cool where Lesnar countered the old school into the F5. That was actually a really cool spot. And quite honestly, it probably should have been the finish, which, let me get into that now. Brock Lesnar ends the streak. Now, I know myself and a lot of other people said there's no way Brock Lesnar's ending the streak. There's no way. It wouldn't make any sense. That does not make any of us look stupid for being proven wrong. It's like, oh, you caught us off guard and you tricked us. Congratulations, you Russo'd us. But the reason we thought there was no chance of Lesnar winning because there'd be no reason for Brock Lesnar to win. He's a part-timer. His best run was over a decade ago, so it's not going to make him a star or anything. He's already a star. It just feels like a waste to give 2 decades worth of build-up to this guy whose best days are behind him. He's not going to be there full-time. And really the only silver lining is like, well, I guess it'll add more meaning to a Daniel Bryan-Brock Lesnar match down the road, but years later, I mean, that's not going to change the fact that the streak, this storyline that they've put over 2 decades into ended in such an anticlimactic way. I'm like, when they got the pin, first of all, the crowd reactions were hilarious because they were like, what? And then they cut to all the people in the crowd. I was just laughing my ass off. And actually, I have an app for this. Gonna pull out my tablet. Let's go. I downloaded this app for the specific purpose of using it for the TriStar Godzilla movie review. But fuck it. This is just too perfect. I'm going to use it here. So basically, this was my reaction to the match and how WWE executed the ending and the match itself. That was my reaction to it. That's exactly what I thought. And after a while, I just found it funny. And when they pulled up the graphic 21-1, I started laughing. I'm like, this is a joke. Like, I can't believe that they actually ended the streak under these circumstances with a match that had such a shitty non-build-up against a guy who looked like shit in the build-up, quite honestly, because Taker kicked his ass so many times, except on the go-home show, which only seemed to cement Undertaker's win, working within their logic. Their typical, and how they typically execute things. This was just anticlimactic, and it just felt like that's the end of the streak. All that for nothing, basically. And here's the thing. I am not one of those guys that was overly protective of the streak and said it can never end. It can never fucking end. It would ruin Undertaker's legacy if that happened. I'm like, look, guys, the streak's not real. The winning streak is not real. And it's not going to hurt Undertaker at all. He's still a great performer, still one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time greatest characters ever. And, I look back on WrestleMania history and wrestling history in general. My 2 favorite Hulk Hogan matches, his match with Rock at 18 and his match with Warrior at 6, are my two favorite Hulk Hogan matches ever, and they're the matches where he lost. And I think Hogan losing in those circumstances added to his legacy. It didn't subtract from it, it added. To see Hulk Hogan get defeated in those situations, the seemingly immortal Hulk Hogan lost. And I think that created a more powerful moment in both cases. And there's plenty of other examples that I could use, but those are the two that really stick out in my mind. And that's what the streak should have been. It should have been something epic. It should have been this grand finale. The streak goes out in a blaze of glory, and preferably a new star is created in the process, because that should have been the goal, because you're taking, again, over 2 decades here, over 2 decades worth of build-up into this character, into this streak, that you've built up, and presumably if you give it to a new guy on the rise, like the new Undertaker, like let's say Kane was debuting now, he'd be a perfect guy to end the streak. Like 98 Kane introduced with a 21-0 streak, he'd be a perfect guy to have end the streak, no question. Bray Wyatt, I've heard his name thrown around. I've heard Roman Reigns' name thrown around. And those are good options. I don't know if they're the quote-unquote right guy to do it. I don't know who the right guy would be. I don't know for sure. What I do know is that if I were a writer in the WWE, and let's say Stephanie McMahon got up in the writers' meeting, he's like, look, this year we're ending the streak. It's what we're doing. And I trust one of you to come up with it for me. I love how I make Stephanie McMahon sound like Elrond. She kind of looks like him. Well, okay. Bad. I'm being an asshole. But that's just me being a dick. I kid. But basically, she stands up and just says, I want one of you to put pen to paper and write the end of the streak. If I were a writer in that situation, I would salivate. I would love the opportunity to write the streak, because it's such a unique writing challenge, because I get to write the end. I get to write the ending of something grand and special. It's like getting to write the end of Breaking Bad, or I get to write the death of Superman, or the death of Batman. It would be epic. I would love, because what could I possibly come up with that would be a suitable ending to something that's so special, and something that's been built up so well, and something that the fans are so invested in? It would be unbelievable to get the opportunity to write something like that. And instead, what I feel like they did, of course, I already mentioned the TriStar Godzilla movie, and I'm going to give you all an earful about that next month when I do part 4 of the Godzilla movie review series. Cheap plug. But really, you look at that movie and everything that movie did wrong, where I have a picture in my head of what Godzilla is supposed to be. And part of that is this invincible force of nature that is so hard to stop, that's really hard to come up with something to really beat him. It's like the options are usually another monster, or some amazing super weapon that could never exist in the real world, like the Oxygen Destroyer. This movie told a really bad story, much like Lesnar and Undertaker did in their build-up, and in building to the climax, I kept thinking, what are they going to do to kill Godzilla? Because they haven't really built up anything. And their ending was, spoiler alert, they shot him. The invincible king of the monsters, Godzilla, gets shot by planes. And it was one of those things like, have you never watched a Godzilla movie? How could you allow a Godzilla movie to end like that? That's lame. That is fucking lame. And yeah, it killed King Kong, but Godzilla's a lot more powerful than King Kong. Not putting Kong down, I love King Kong. But I'm just making my point and explaining why that ending didn't work and why it was anticlimactic, because it was a complete betrayal of what my idea of Godzilla really was. And that's what this was. This was, an Undertaker WrestleMania match, to me, should be something special, because you're putting something epic on the line every year, and you should really be putting forth your A game every single year to make the story more and more interesting. And they haven't really done that in the last few years, and that's been part of my disappointment. It's just kind of a foregone conclusion that Taker's going to win. They don't put much thought into the build-up. The two guys just have stare-downs, and that's the extent of what they do typically. I mean, Paul Bearer had to die for them, the match with Punk, to have anything. And this match going in this year had nothing. Lesnar wasn't that hot, and they made him look like shit in the build-up. They didn't give you anything to really sink your teeth into to really make you want to see this match. The match itself was dog shit. Hated it. Is it a top 10 worst WrestleMania match of all time? Probably not, but it was still pretty bad. It was definitely Undertaker's worst match in years. Like, in years. Probably going all the way back to 15. Actually, I went through Cena's history. Let's go through Taker's. 29s I loved. 28s was very good. 27s was pretty good. I think it's overrated, but it was pretty good. The two matches with Shawn at 25 and 26 were great. The match with Edge was very good. Match with Batista was great. The match with Henry, a lot of people shit on, but for a throwaway kind of mid-cardy match, it was Undertaker having a match with a tree trunk, but it was okay for what it was. The match with Orton was great. The match with Kane at 21, it wasn't that great, but the entrance was cool, so nobody really thought too much about it. The match at 19, the handicap match was, but it was a throwaway filler match, so it doesn't really, it came with no expectations anyway. The match with Flair at 18 was good. The match with Triple H at 17 was really good. Very good, actually. And, this is the worst Undertaker WrestleMania match since his Hell in a Cell match with Big Boss Man, which I still think is the worst match in Taker's career. Well, I don't know. The Concrete Crypt match is pretty high up there, too. But that one didn't happen at WrestleMania, thank God. That one's kind of faded away from people's memories, which, again, thank God. That's probably a good thing. But the match was dog shit. So everything about this match was bad. And then you kill the streak on top of it. It just felt like a gigantic clusterfuck of anticlimactic. I felt like it's almost like, okay, Walking Dead. I mentioned that earlier. Let's have Daryl die at the hands of one zombie, basically, with no build-up. And it's like Daryl, who you've built up as King Badass, who one of the characters said in a recent episode is going to be the last man standing. Foreshadowing. Perhaps, I don't know. And you have him die at the hands of one zombie, like the way Dale died in Season 2. That's kind of lame. That would be extremely lame and disappointing if they ended Daryl that way. It's like killing Superman at the hands of the Toy Man, or I'm trying to think of all these other things. Just something really lame and really uncreative. Of course, I already mentioned the TriStar Godzilla. Fuck that movie. But basically, this whole experience with Taker and Lesnar, it was an anticlimactic ending to something that should have been grand. And if I had to compare it to anything else in wrestling, the closest that I can come up with is the ending to Starrcade 97 between Sting and Hogan. Great build-up. Great characters. Some of WCW's best programming. Sting had never been hotter. Hogan had never been hotter as a heel. Some of the best television WCW had ever produced. Some of my favorite moments in Nitro history. The Sting Army. Loved it. The ending to Uncensored 97 where Sting finally attacked the NWO. Loved it. So many great things that they did in that build-up, and it was just building and building and building for a year and a half to this epic showdown at Starrcade 97, and they fucked up the fast count, and they restarted the match, and then the match itself wasn't very good anyway, and it was kind of boring, and then they did the clusterfucky ending, and then Sting kind of sort of won. It was very unsatisfying and very anticlimactic to something that had been so beautifully set up, and with the streak, I feel kind of the same way. Even though the build-up to this particular match sucked balls, it was 2 decades, I can't stress that enough, over 2 decades worth of build-up, and that's how you end it? Lame. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna whip it out again. I don't fucking care. Nah, lost it. There. Just fucking lame, and I don't even know, like, how many times are they even going to use Lesnar after this? I mean, you can't really build much of a future with him. Again, the best you can do is do him and Daniel Bryan for the title. That's really the best thing you can do to fix this. And even then, it's still going to, years later, I'm going to be remembering this match as the end of the anticlimactic finish to something that should have been so much more grand. So, of all the things that WrestleMania 30 did right, the way they ended the streak was awful, and the match itself was awful anyway. Even if Taker had gone over, the match still would have been awful, and that's really rare. It's been rare in recent years that Undertaker's match was the worst match on WrestleMania, but It was, and the ending didn't help. The best thing I can say about this match, the old school into the F5 spot was pretty cool, and the crowd reaction was so hilarious that I just had to just kind of laugh at it. But I hope that as big of a black eye as that was, I hope, and I didn't make this point clear, I've been avoiding video reviews of WrestleMania 30 because I just wanted to come in here and just give my own fresh perspective on everything, and not be swayed by other people's opinions. I just wanted to go in and just blast it out there. Here's what I thought. And, whether you agree with it or not, I'll just let you decide. But as big a black eye as this was on both actually, quite honestly, WrestleMania's entire legacy, because they just flushed the whole streak down the drain and wasted it, in my opinion. But all of that said, I hope that people don't think too poorly of the show because of it, because this WrestleMania did almost everything else right, and was a very entertaining show all around. And we'll move right along from that bit of awful. We had the Divas match next, which was a filler. It wasn't terrible, I'll say that. It was a little clusterfucky, but it was just a filler match. AJ won. Okay, that's fine. I guess I'll jump into this part of Raw. They had Paige come out and make her debut, come out the next night on Raw and win the Divas title from AJ, which I like that Paige is finally on the roster, and she's coming in with a lot of hype on the internet, and they debuted her in front of the right crowd, because that post-Mania crowd is obviously full of smart marks, so they knew who she was, and they were really excited for her and really reacted well to her debut. The problem is that they had her win the title, and I think you're kind of jumping the gun here. It's like, I probably would have either saved her debut for the night after Mania and put her on the path to eventually winning the title, or debuted her months earlier and then built her up to Mania where she beat AJ for the title. To me, like, doing the debut and the title win in one night, it's just too much to process, and it just feels like too much too soon. And I'm basing that off of experience, because the WWE did the exact same thing with Gail Kim when they debuted her. Gail Kim's a great talent, right? They had her win the title her first night in, and it just kind of killed her on arrival because nobody knew who she was. And yeah, granted, the crowd, that post-Mania crowd knew who Paige was, but I don't know if she's going to be able to maintain that future crowds. And also, you got to wonder, it's like, all right, she's already won the belt. You kind of screwed her out of the journey. To me, you should build up the journey. I mean, even Taylor Wilde in TNA, who beat Awesome Kong, and a lot of people criticize that on the internet, but I personally, I kind of like Taylor Wilde, so I thought it was fine. But they gave her a journey. There was actually a character and a story there. They didn't just have her come in on her first night and win the belt off of Kong. They didn't do that. So, and granted, they could have done it better, I agree, but they didn't have her win it on her first night. So, I kind of disagreed with that move, but Paige seems like a good talent. I haven't seen too much of her, but everybody really likes her. And typically, when it comes to girls, the internet is usually right. They all like Sarah Del Rey, and she's very good. They all like Gail Kim, she's very good. They all like Awesome Kong, she's very good. They all like cheerleader Melissa. How the fuck is she not on the main roster for either TNA or WWE? I don't know. But yeah, Paige seems like a really good addition so far, so I just wish they didn't have her win the title right away. And it actually kind of wastes AJ's title reign because you just threw it away on Raw. It's kind of like going back to what I talked about with the streak, but whatever. Getting back to Mania, though. Main event. This is the last thing. Very cool, I have to say. Very, very cool. I thought the three-way was a lot of fun, and the way they kept yanking Daniel Bryan out of it and making it look like they were going to screw him and all of us over was really made the match exciting and really entertaining. Of course, I have to talk about that spot where they Batista bombed Bryan into an RKO through a table. And I was like, you couldn't pay me enough money to want to take that spot. I was like, no, thank you. That is crazy. But it looked really cool and really made it look like Bryan was done. And a really devastating looking spot. And that was all great. The action was great. All the bells and whistles with Triple H and Stephanie running out. And the crooked referee, Scott Armstrong. And all of that stuff. All very good. All very entertaining. And it just made Bryan's mission even better. Like, you wanted him to win it even more the more they threw at him. It was just so much fun. So much fun to watch. And major credit to Daniel Bryan. This really demonstrates how over he is. Because if they had ended the streak in some of the previous WrestleManias, like, let's say if they'd ended it at 25. Well, that's a bad example because the crowd was dead anyway. I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say 27. 27 seems like it. No, because they were dead for the main event that year too. I'm having trouble thinking of a good example. Certainly last year they were dead for the main event. So anyway, the point I want to make, and I can't come up with any good examples for, if they had ended the streak on for any other WrestleMania, it seems, and I can't really put that to the test, unfortunately, with any kind of empirical evidence, but if they had ended the streak on any other WrestleMania, the crowd would have been dead for the main event. That's like, all right, show's over, we're done here. they were so hot for Daniel Bryan, it was crazy. And that's really a testament to Daniel Bryan's charisma, his popularity, and just this great underdog character that they've created here. And thank God the fans reacted the way they did at the Royal Rumble, because it really resulted in a great payoff. As Daniel Bryan won the title, making Batista tap out and getting to celebrate with the Yes movement, all 75,000 of them, as WrestleMania draws to a close. And that was an epic finale to WrestleMania. And really, I mean, there's not enough I can say about it. They did everything right here. They did it all right. They gave us what we wanted. They gave us the payoff we should have gotten. And again, I maintain they didn't plan this all along, but I think after the Royal Rumble, they knew they had to change some shit. And they did a phenomenal job changing shit. I mean, that Plan B for Bryan, because that was awesome. Loved it. The main event was a lot of fun. The match with Triple H was great, and was all perfectly woven into this great storyline throughout the night, and with an excellent payoff. And again, it brings back memories of Randy Savage at 4 and Bret at Mania 10. Just really great stuff. Loved it. And of course, the rules of 10 continues, where the wrestling guy gets the belt at the end of every 10th WrestleMania. It was Bret at 10. That shadow, retconned Wolverine that we're not supposed to remember, Chris Benoit, at 20, and Daniel Bryan at 30. So the wrestling guy always gets it at every 10th WrestleMania. That's a kind of an odd tradition, but kind of a cool one. I don't know if they deliberately do it that way or whatever, but yeah, WrestleMania, for Daniel Bryan's story and a lot of the entertaining matches and some of the guys that they put over, I thought WrestleMania 30 was, quite honestly, one of the best WrestleManias in years. I would go as far to say the best one since 19. It's been that long since we've had a WrestleMania that truly knocked my socks off, and this one did. Daniel Bryan was the star of the show, but pretty much everything else delivered, except for, I wish Bray Wyatt had gone over, but okay, that's nitpicky. And Taker Lesnar, regardless of the outcome, the match sucked. And the ending sucked, because it was just an anticlimactic finish to the streak. But that was terrible. But everything else was really good. John Cena, Bray Wyatt, really good match. Triple H and Bryan, awesome match. My favorite match of the night. The main event, very cool, very well done. Loved it, exciting, perfect payoff. Loved it. The Shield killing the Outlaws, that made me happy. The Battle Royal was fun. They put over Cesaro. That was a nice surprise, and that was cool. Do they have a future star in the making? Let's hope so, because that was really awesome. Excuse me. What else did they do? I'm kind of slipping. No, I guess that was all they did. But yeah, but overall, WrestleMania was a very entertaining show. Very exciting. It went by fast. I mean, this was a 4-hour show that I did not feel the 4 hours at all. It was just a very, very well done wrestling show. It's just that one major problem with the Undertaker streak, and I hope that people don't judge WrestleMania 30 for that, but that seems to be what most people are talking about, at least in what I've seen in Facebook comments and some YouTube comments and other things like that. But personally, I mean, forgetting that for a second, and I know that's hard to forget because it was so shittily done, and it was the end of something that was supposed to be so grand, but WrestleMania 30 was an outstanding show, and I think WWE really delivered their A game, and I was really entertained by the show almost entirely from start to finish. And, it was Daniel Bryan's night. It was a lot of fun, and the best way I can sum that up is yes, 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 WrestleMania 30 kicked ass. Phew, almost done here. I feel like I've been singing La Resistance from the South Park movies. Like, when the fuck did this become a marathon, But, I had a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, so you got a long video out of me. But basically, I'm just going to wrap up by talking a little bit about Raw. I've already mentioned a lot of the big stuff from Raw, like the Cesaro-Heyman thing, and, Paige winning the Divas title and stuff like that. But overall, Raw, the post-Mania Raw was, as you would expect, a lot of fun because the crowd was so lively all the way through. It wasn't quite the Jersey crowd from last year, but they were a very lively bunch. They were just happy to revel in Daniel Bryan's big celebration, and all of that was a lot of fun. Made even better by the fact that the Shield joined forces with Daniel Bryan at the end of the show, and I was just like, marking, so much marking, love this. The 4 coolest baby faces in the company all standing in the ring together. That's just fucking sweet. I really like the ending. did a couple of things. It looks like they're trying to establish a few other guys, like this Alexander Rusev guy. I hope I pronounced that right. Who is paired with, again, I'm going to keep calling her Ivan Drago's wife, because that's basically what she is. I'm convinced that somebody watched Rocky 4 and was like, oh, Bridget Nielsen from that movie? Yeah, we can turn that into a wrestling character. Rob Van Dam's back, which, I mean, it's not as bad as the Outlaws. At least Rob Van Dam looks like Rob Van Dam, but I kind of lost my luster with him a couple years ago. So it's kind of like, he just kind of goes out there and does the same thing every time, and only now it's kind of at half speed. So, but he looked better than normal on Raw, but we'll see how long that lasts. I don't think there was anything else. I think I covered pretty much all the big stuff. So, Raw was entertaining as usual and really followed up WrestleMania quite nicely. And like I said, WrestleMania 30 for Daniel Bryan and all the other things I liked was very good. The way the streak ended completely lacked in any kind of imagination, but that them's the breaks, I guess. But overall, WrestleMania 30 was a very strong show. Further things I need to talk about. I wish I could say this is the last long video I'd be doing for a while, because I am a little tired. Not like I'm fed up, I'm tired of doing this. No, I'm legitimately tired. These long videos are actually wearing me out. I do have... The next video I will post will be part 3 of my Godzilla movie review series, which I have refilmed, and I just need to re-edit it. It might get pushed back. I know I said it was going to get posted this weekend. I might have to push it back to, like, Monday. So, I know most people won't be bothered by that. I just wanted to let you know that if you don't see it this weekend, that's why. I have to re-edit the entire thing. But it is all filmed, thank God. Anything else? I am going to do a video tribute to Sting. I got the incentive to do that from watching a little bit of the WWE Network. It's like, you know what? I want to talk about Sting a little bit and show the Stinger some love and talk about why I respect him so much. So I do want to do that. That'll be coming after the Godzilla video at some undetermined time. I haven't decided yet. And then after that, I might just take a break for a month until... Like, the next video you'll see will be the Godzilla... final movie reviews for the Millennium series a month later, because I'm just tired, man. Just tired. WrestleMania season wore me the fuck out. But, saying goodbye. Thank you all to everybody who listened all the way through. Game of Thrones, it's really good. Watch it. Walking Dead, can't wait for the next season. I think it's going to be really good, especially with that cliffhanger at the end. What else? Captain America, Winter Soldier. It's awesome. Go see it. WWE looks like they've got their act together, because WrestleMania was really hot, really strong, and we got Daniel Bryan as champion, and the Shield as babyfaces, and it's all looking really good. I'm really enjoying WWE programming for the moment. TNA has a new writer. I guess we'll see how that goes. I don't know. Jeff Jarrett has a new wrestling promotion. We'll see how that goes. Covered a lot of stuff today. Thank you all for going along with me, not just through this long-ass video, but through the entire road to WrestleMania and all the other videos I did. The Hidden Gems video, the matches that I like that nobody else does, my top 30 match list. Thank you all for, sharing that with me and going along with me on the entire road to WrestleMania. And thank you for watching this extremely long-ass video. I definitely appreciate that. But that's all I have for now. And until then, I will see you all later. Next time you see me, I'll be talking more about Godzilla. And the next wrestling video will be coming soon after that. So until then, later, everybody.